Good evening. Welcome to the October 7th, 2024 meeting of the Stillwater City Council. At this time, I will call this meeting to order. Before we get to the Pledge of Allegiance here, though, real quick, I just want to remind you, if you're here to speak at any of our on any of our agenda items or at the public hearing, please fill out the form outside, bring it in, and we'll make sure we get you on the list. I don't know if the folks out in the lobby can hear us when we're doing this. A lot of people here today. Good to see you all. All right, at this time, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have Boy Scout Troop, or Scout Troop 802 from here in Stillwater here with us today, and one of our scouts is going to come help lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Really appreciate you scouts being here tonight. I know you're here as part of a merit badge, which is fantastic. Love to have you involved in community issues. All right, first up, we will start with proclamations and presentations. I have a proclamation in recognition of Public Power Week. Whereas the residents of Stillwater, Oklahoma place value on local control of community services and have chosen to operate a community-owned electric utility, and as customers and owners of this electric utility have a voice in utility operations and policies. Whereas the Stillwater Electric Utility provides homes, businesses, social services, healthcare, and local government agencies with reliable, efficient, and cost-effective electricity, employing sound business practices designed to ensure the best possible service at competitive rates. And whereas the Stillwater Electric Utility is a valuable community asset that contributes to the well-being of local residents through financial support of general government, including public safety, transportation, parks, library, and recreation. And whereas the Stillwater Electric Utility is a dependable and trustworthy institution whose local operation provides many customer protections and continues to make the community a better place to live and work and contributes to protecting the global environment. And whereas the Stillwater Electric Utility will continue to work to bring low-cost, safe, reliable electricity to community homes and businesses just as it has since 1901, when the utility was created to serve all Stillwater residents. And whereas Stillwater Community joins more than 2,000 other public power systems in the United States in celebration of public power. So now therefore I, William Joyce, Mayor of the City of Stillwater, do hereby proclaim the week of October 6th through 12th, 2024 as Public Power Week to recognize Stillwater Electric Utility for its contributions to the community and the benefits of public power. We have some representative from the electric utility here tonight.
There he is.
Hi, Lauren.
Good evening, Lauren Smith, Electric Utility Director. Just want to say thank you for all your support. Like it said in the proclamation, we're one of 2,000 municipals across the country that provide these great services. So thank you, and we appreciate it.
Lauren, you guys are leaving. Before it's time to, this next one has a mascot, and we need an electric power mascot for you guys too. Sparky is hard to beat though. It's also Fire Prevention Week. Whereas the City of Stillwater is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all residents and visitors, and whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the location where people are at greatest risk. And whereas home fires caused 3,790 civilian deaths in the United States in 2022, according to the U.S. Fire Administration. And whereas residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas Stillwater residents should make sure their smoke and carbon monoxide alarms meet the needs of all their family members, including those with sensory or physical disabilities. And whereas Stillwater first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas the 2024 Fire Prevention Week serves to remind residents it's important to have a home fire escape plan. Now, therefore, I, William Joyce, Mayor of the City of Stillwater, do hereby proclaim the week of October 6th through 12th, 2024, as Fire Prevention Week, and I urge all the people of Stillwater to plan and practice a home fire escape and support public safety activities of Stillwater Fire and Emergency Services. We have folks from the Stillwater Fire Department here as well.
Dustin Portman, Deputy Fire Marshal, Stillwater Fire Department. I want to say thank you to the council for supporting this. This is a program we've done every year for a very long time. This is a great chance for us to get out and impact every student in Stillwater. 3,000 plus kids that we get to talk to every year about fire prevention, and we've seen the impact it has in our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you all.
I wanted to hear from the mascot.
I got to tell you, I think Sparky is much more well received at the elementary school assemblies that he does more than the city council meetings here. You guys were not as excited as I've seen the third graders get. All right, this week we also want to recognize Model Aviation Day here in Stillwater. Whereas radio-controlled model aviation has been studied and utilized for more than 80 years, and whereas radio-controlled model aviation is an educational and enjoyable activity for all ages. And whereas model aviation is a science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM, initiative to teach mechanical design, aerodynamics, engineering, and electronics. And whereas the Stillwater Radio Control Flyers is a chartered association of the National Organization for Model Aviation, Academy of Model Aeronautics, and has been established in Stillwater for more than 50 years. And whereas the organization promotes educational growth and community involvement and will host their annual Stillwater Model Aviation Day for attendees to learn more about the organization and STEM initiatives on Saturday, October 12th, 2024 at the Oklahoma State University Unmanned Aircraft Flight Station at 4015 North Clay Road. Now, therefore, I, William Joyce, Mayor of Stillwater, Oklahoma, do hereby proclaim Saturday, October 12th, 2024 as Model Aviation Day in Stillwater. I think we have some representatives from the club.
I'm Kevin Odell and have been a member of the club off and on since I was a student up here. The club has been around, like I said, for over 50 years. And it is an excellent STEM program. We have even a number of youth right now that we're working with, 4-H group, where they are coming out and learning a lot about aviation and learning even about rocketry. So we want everyone to come out. You have the opportunity to get hands-on a radio-controlled airplane with an instructor and see what it's like to fly one. And so we want everyone to come out and enjoy it. There will be some food trucks there, so it will be busy.
Excellent.
And it is, as he said, the address, it's 12 miles east of Perkins on 51 to Clay Road, turn north 3¼ miles.
All right.
We want everybody to show up 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thanks for the work you all are doing.
I will say, while they're all getting set up over there, they've got quite an amazing field out there. When you fly over, it looks like a regular old airport. Real runway and everything.
Okay. Item 4 on our agenda is the consent docket. Counselors, questions, comments, or action on the consent docket?
Motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve consent. Please vote. The vote of 5-0, the consent docket is approved. Okay, so that takes us to public comment on items not scheduled for public hearing. So we'll have, I think we have one person sign up to speak about one of the other items on the agenda tonight, and that is Roger Gose. Come on down.
Roger Gose, 1120 East Connell. Is this on 3545?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Second reading ordinance. This one sort of snuck up on me. The fire services. I see that the funds go to the fire fund, which I think that's sort of where they've been going, but I'd like for y'all to consider in the future moving some of those funds over to help pay the bond on the fire station. Part of the emphasis for the new fire station was to improve service to the west side outside of city limits. And I think it's only fair that those folks that are at least subscribing get to help pay for that, and maybe it'll lessen the burden on the rest of us, and we can get that thing paid off quicker. That's the thing I had. There's some other issues I've talked to Terry about, the chief, and he'll be getting with probably Brady about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I don't know if that's a legal issue that we'd have to discuss about whether those, we can address that, right? Figure that out, if we can use that money that way. All right. That takes us to public hearings, item 7. 7A is the first public hearing pursuant to 62 OS Section 859 and presentation of the proposed Stillwater Data Center Economic Development Project Plan and its supporting 6 incentive districts for the purpose of providing information, including an analysis of potential positive or negative impacts and answering questions regarding the proposed project plan and incentive districts. Our special counsel for economic development, Dan Batchelor, is here. I don't know if you guys have a presentation planned or not. Just here to answer questions. Please.
Mr. Mayor, distinguished members of council, I am Dan Batchelor. I'm here with my co-counsel, Lisa Harden. As the mayor said, we have been engaged as special counsel to the city of Stillwater in connection with its economic development efforts. This presentation will be short. There has been a prior presentation, but due to minor deficiencies in 2 published notices, we've had to repeat that initial public hearing. The purpose of this hearing, as the mayor just said, is to provide information about the proposed project and to answer questions. There will be a second public hearing at which all will be invited who are interested to make statements for and against the project plan and its adoption before action by the City Council. I think we have a presentation keyed up, but I'm not sure whether how to access that. If I have any guidance, I'll appreciate it.
One from August. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do I advance that?
Okay. You'll just
Click it, and we go.
you just click right or left.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you very, very much for that assistance, which I greatly needed. I'll begin by saying that an economic... Let me begin by saying that an economic development project is quite different from a football game where there's a winning party and a losing party. With a well-designed and thoughtful economic development project, all participants can be winners. And having evaluated the project and participated in the negotiations which will lead to the consideration of council action following the second public hearing, I'm here to tell you that in our professional opinion and judgment, the proposed project plan is a very desirable step for the city of Stillwater. We are in the fortunate position of having a proposal for the development of a data center which will consist initially of 2 phases for development and potentially 4 additional phases. Each phase will require an investment of about $500 million, so the first 2 phases will bring that aggregate investment to approximately $1 billion. What is requested and what is authorized under the proposed project plan is a ad valorem tax exemption for the real estate and the business personal property involved in that $1 billion worth of development. In return for that, as you will see, there are certain significant considerations which will benefit this city and the community at large. The request by the development company is for a 100% tax exemption utilizing the powers granted to cities under a 1990 amendment to the Oklahoma Constitution and the 1992 development of Oklahoma's Local Development Act. Prior to that time, cities had virtually no resources and no authorized legal means to undertake economic development projects. Their ability to raise revenues was extremely limited. What that constitutional amendment and the Local Development Act adopted by the legislature provided was an opportunity for cities to engage in economic development funded by some of the new taxes generated by new development or to grant exemptions to generate that new development. What is proposed here is a tax exemption of this very substantial development. But in return for that, utilizing these legal powers, there will be financial obligations to flow to the benefit of the city and to each affected taxing jurisdiction in the community. The entities to be benefited will be every affected taxing jurisdiction, which includes public schools, the county, Meridian Technology, the county health department, and certain provisions will enable the city to undertake a wide range of economic development activities. This proposed development is located south of Richmond Road and to the north of East Airport Road. It consists of about 386 acres. The project plan would establish 6 tax increment districts, but initially the proposed economic development agreement, which will be considered at the same time as approval of the project plan, will only fully authorize the development of the first 2 phases so that the city reserves the opportunity in the future to negotiate the terms for the development of each of the potential additional 4 incentive districts and data center development phases. Under the project plan, the development company will make payments in lieu of taxes, which will amount to about $827,000 a year to be allocated among the taxing jurisdictions in proportion to their most recent allocation of property taxes. What this will amount to for these taxing jurisdictions is a total sum of approximately $26 million over the 25-year period of the tax exemptions. In addition to that, there will be a $132,000 plus annual payment called Community Betterment Payment to the city, which may be used in connection with its economic development efforts. A third financial benefit that will flow to the community would be the payment of a 3% franchise tax on the electric power services to be provided by OG&E, which is subject to an approval by a vote of the citizens, I think which is scheduled for November the 5th. I won't go through the full breakdown of these revenues, but this shows the allocation, and that $26 million over the 25-year period is allocated among the taxing jurisdictions, with the greatest beneficiary being the Stillwater Public Schools. And that's particularly noteworthy because these payments are not tax revenues, therefore they are not subject to the same restrictions as tax revenues, and these entities may use those revenues with a higher degree of discretion, and it represents a much more significant revenue benefit than would be an equivalent tax payment directly to the public school system, and that is in part because local improvement in tax revenues to your school district results in significant offsets in the revenues that are provided by state school aid, so that the net benefit to the public school system will be most significant and highly beneficial to this community, enabling it to do things it could not otherwise do. The 3% franchise tax will come to the city as additional revenue, and since the city will not have costs to be incurred in furnishing that electric power, that too can form a part of an economic development budget contained in the project plan, which will be allocated to various budgetary categories and enable this community to undertake endeavors to pay significant returns over the 25-year period of the tax exemptions. What it means is that 2 phases of the development will yield approximately $111 million in new revenues, which can be used for the authorized economic development purposes contained in this project plan. And that's revenue which would not exist without this development. At the same time, it should be noted that this is a very significant benefit to the developer, because they're only paying a small fraction of what the property taxes would be for such a capital-intensive investment. But by comparison, realize that this is a development of vacant land that has no current development programmed for it, and the payments in lieu of taxes only, disregarding the community betterment payment and disregarding the franchise fee revenues, just the payment in lieu of taxes only will generate as much revenue for the taxing jurisdictions as if you had built, in lieu of each phase, 250 new homes at a price of $300,000 each. So the 2 phases yield the equivalent of a 500 dwelling subdivision development totaling approximately $150 million. What makes the benefit so significant to the investor developer of the data center is the fact that that development is so cost intensive. So it gives us the opportunity as a community to generate significant revenues without much in the way of additional cost. You have the impacts, of course, of the additional employees. Each phase will generate about 25 high-quality jobs, so maybe 50, maybe a little bit less with the 2 phases, high-quality jobs, and that will tend to impose some additional burden on the services of the community and may add some additional students to the public schools. But the additional burden is very modest compared to the wide range of benefits and flexibility that this community will have to make new investments and generate a wide range of benefits going forward. So our view is that the benefits to the city and the taxing entities are very significant. It's comparable. The deal is comparable to the deals made for development of data centers in other states. Without this inducement, this development might well be located elsewhere. The public benefits are extremely significant. Therefore, my co-counsel Lisa Harden and I, and acting as your consultant, highly recommend and endorse and encourage your approval of this development. I'd be most happy to respond to any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Batchelor. Councilors, any questions at this point?
You know, I think I would like to highlight something you said and just reemphasize it. As a former school board member, this is a big deal to me, and I think to a lot of people in our community. That $624,000 a year going to the school district, you said it already, but I want to say it again. If they collected that through property taxes, there would be deduction in their state aid. And so they would not be seen as big an impact because a lot of the state aid is going to go away. They get to keep all their state aid in this scenario and get $624,000 per year per phase. It's a huge deal for our schools, and I just want to make sure everybody clearly understands that.
I would add to that the plan and the economic development agreement that will be proposed for approval also provides for a 1% increase in that payment every year, so that over the period of the tax exemptions, the aggregate projected amount to be received by the Stillwater Public Schools from Phase 1 is a little larger than $17,600,000, and for Phase 2 a little greater than $18,700,000. So it is a very significant benefit to the Stillwater Public School System.
And that's not even considering future potential phases 3, 4, 5, and 6.
That's correct. That's just phases 1 and 2. One of the advantages of that is the city then will have the opportunity to assess this arrangement and this partnership with the data center company and evaluate and be informed further when it enters, if indeed it does enter into a supplemental development agreement for phases 4, 5, and 6. 3, 4, 5, and 6. Any other questions?
All right, well, we will move on to the public comment phase of this meeting. Before I open the public hearing, thanks so much, Dan. He'll be here to help answer questions if we need.
Any questions.
I think we also have a representative of the company here that can help answer questions if we need. And I'll just before we kick this off, just kind of as a background on where we've been with this this discussion. So we're looking at this project plan. This project plan would create the 6 increment districts. It does not, as Dan said, it does not have. There's an actual economic development agreement that the city would sign that would authorize the actual building of these facilities, which we're just talking about the first 2 at this point, not all 6. We initially had meetings with all 6 taxing jurisdictions. They looked at this plan as a committee, as required by the state law. They appointed 3 additional public representatives, who were Pat Darlington, Aaron Wilson, and Matt Sullins, who were appointed as the public representatives to that committee. They considered it together as a group and voted to recommend its approval to the city council unanimously. It was then considered by the planning commission here at the city of Stillwater, who considered the plan and recommended its approval unanimously to the city council. And so now we're at the step of public hearings. We're required to have 2. We're actually going to have 3, because the first one, as Dan said, again, we didn't. The notice didn't get published quite right in the paper, and so we had to do it again. But the first one is for the public ability to ask questions, right? So we want you to be able to ask whatever questions you have about the plan. Like I said, there are people here who can help answer those. If we can't answer them tonight, we'll certainly do what we can to answer them for you in the future. And then there's a second public hearing, which is on our council agenda for November 4th. And in that second public hearing, the state law says that's where people get up and advocate either for or against or make their comments. And so tonight, what we're asking for you to do as the public is to ask the questions that you have. Each person who signed up will have 5 minutes. If you want to go through and ask all your questions, and then we can answer them afterwards, that's probably the best use of time. If we get into trying to go back and forth with conversation, then we can run out of time for doing that. So at this point, I will open our public hearing. I did have, let's see, I have 1, 2, 3. I think I have 5 or 6 people who are signed up to speak. If you are planning to speak tonight and you don't know that I have this form in your hand, please go grab one and get it back up here to the table. But first up in our public hearing, I did open the public hearing, didn't I?
Yes.
First up in the public hearing is Robin Cornwell.
Good evening, Robin Cornwell, 2223 North Crescent Drive. So I was at the previous hearing,
You
which
were.
I guess, okay, so I'll just reiterate what something that I said there, and then I do have a couple of questions. I'll start with my couple of questions. So regarding the timeline, just reiterate, or let me know. The first thing that will happen, well, a lot has already happened, but after the public hearings, the city council will vote to accept the project plan, and then the taxing entities, the county entities, will vote individually?
Mhm.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, so the project won't move forward until all that happens. Is that correct?
In this type of, and I told you we were going to do this, but yes, in this type of plan, each of the taxing jurisdictions also has to approve the tax incentive.
Okay,
So in our other TIFs that we've done previously, that didn't
Mhm.
have to happen. In this one, each taxing jurisdiction, their board will meet to individually approve the tax
Okay.
incentive.
okay. And I think what I read is that needs to happen within 60 days of your approval.
I think that's true, but Dan could jump up and tell us if that's not. He's saying that's true, yes,
Okay.
60 days.
Okay, very good, thank you. So my second question is pretty general, but we've heard a lot about the benefits. What are the risks? What's the worst thing that could happen? And then I'll go ahead and say my statement that I was going to say, and maybe you all can talk a little bit about risk.
Okay.
Okay, so I am concerned about the use of fossil fuel energy for the data centers. We know that data centers use a lot of electricity. I recently read a statistic. This was in an article in the Wall Street Journal last week or week before, and the statistic is from the Electric Power Research Institute. It says data centers could use as much as 9% of U.S. electricity by 2030. So that's a big jump in electric power, and I'm concerned that power is continuing to come from fossil fuel energy. I know OG&E, or according to their website, they offer wind and solar options to residential customers, and they offer solar power to businesses. But to my knowledge, OG&E has not made any assurances about that the power for the data centers will come from clean energy sources. I'm in favor of economic development, but I'm inclined to vote no on giving OG&E the franchise unless they can make some commitment about to clean energy for the project.
Thank you.
That's everything.
I appreciate
Thank you.
you being here.
Thanks. I'll just, sorry, a couple more things. So I was looking for a way to send OG&E a note or a comment, and a lot of us have received these in the mail. I used the QR code, and I did send them a question about this, and I haven't heard back.
Okay.
And just one other thing, in talking to people in my circle about this, not many people are actually talking about clean energy for the project, but people are really concerned about water. They're concerned about how much water the data centers might use and what happens to the water after it's used by the data center. what happens to the wastewater and if it's able to be made
Yep.
usable again.
Mayor, may I?
Please.
Yep. Robin, I'll be able to address some of your questions that might help some of the others in the room that have similar concerns. So as far as the question on risk, there's a couple things I want to make sure everyone knows. Our city staff has been doing extensive due diligence with the company. Conversations actually started in December, and they've been meeting weekly, multiple times a month to work through all of our capacities, our infrastructure. And so there has been a significant amount of hours that have been worked with the company to make sure that the project lines up with our capacities, and we're not putting any pressure on our systems. That's what we do with any development that comes, but especially one of this scale. The second thing that is a great thing to point out is this is not a venture company that just sets up a data center as cheap as it can for Bitcoining or bit mining. This is a large-scale, high-quality company that has a history of building these high-quality, large-scale data center facilities. They are the end user, and they're the ones creating it. So it's not one that's being built cheaply and then sold off to the lowest or the highest buyer. And that is going on throughout the country, but not here. So that is a little bit to address your question on risk. On water, we can get into some of the water. In the EDA that will be presented to the council is a max usage of 2.7 MGD. That's millions of gallons per day for both phases. That sounds like a big number, and it is for a user. Our current water capacity rights on Call Lake is 50 MGD a day. The most we've ever pulled as a city is 14 MGD. Our average throughout the year is 7 MGD. So we're significantly under that daily water rights capacity that we have, and this is pulling not even the max that's available in our current system. In that area of the town, we have approximately 3.2 MGD available per day. They're only being able to, and that is the max they can pull if they build both buildings. That's the max they can pull for both buildings is 2.7 MGD. So that's falling well in our system. And I understand everyone's concerned. I agree with energy conservation, all the same things that you're talking about, and we care about all those things from leadership and as a staff. And so we've done extreme due diligence, pushing back and making sure that everything lines up with what our system can currently handle, and anything that they need to bring to the table are improvements funded by the company. So, and wastewater, thank you. The company uses a very proprietary clean system, and so that the amount of water usage in is not the water usage out, so it recycles. And so there is, they've worked with our wastewater management team to make sure that the clean water falls within the limits of our wastewater current plant. We have more capacity there than they're going to be pushing us. And then future phases, as those develop, as the mayor mentioned, phases 3 through 6 have a much higher cost and a much higher on the company to provide those infrastructure improvements that would also help our community. And so that is something that will be looked at and approved by the council at that time. So in a way, there's kind of a pilot for these first two phases if the council so chooses. And then there can be a decision from a community or from the future councils to say, we're not going to develop 3 through 6. But right now, the tax document handles the first 6. It covers all 6 districts, but the economic development agreement that is being considered is just the first 2 phases. So.
And regarding wastewater, so it sounds like the company will treat the water themselves? Is that what you're?
Do you want to keep doing questions? Are you okay?
Yeah. Well,
Sorry, my time is up. Yeah, that's okay.
What they discharge will be able to be discharged straight into our wastewater.
Okay.
And that is all.
They won't be discharging anything that requires any additional treatment.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
that's heavily tested by DEQ, our engineers. That's all monitored. So. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Let's see. Anything else that anybody wanted to answer in terms of her questions? Additional comments? Next up, I have Henri Iwahara.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor, councilors, and city staff. Henri Wahara, 1911 East Kelsey. I'm here not to support or oppose the proposed data center project, but to ask for more information or details of the plan to be able to make an informed decision. I have questions that I would like to see answered prior to the OG&E franchise vote in November. The major concern I have is similar to what Robin just mentioned, which is this project, the impact this project will have for future environmental issues that might harm our community, our state, the country, the planet. The massive amounts of power and water consumed are difficult for me and the general public to really comprehend. As an engineer, my understanding is that AI data centers consume somewhere on the order of 6 to 12 times the amount of a conventional data center with power fluctuations that are much more volatile. I don't know what size or type of data center is being proposed, but if it's for AI, for one of the hyperscalers like Amazon, Google, or Microsoft, are we looking at 250 to 500 megawatts for one data center? If this is the case, we're talking about one data center consuming significantly more power than all the power that the city uses and all the power that the city purchases in 1 year. Even the power consumed by a 50 megawatt data center would be comparable to the city's usage. And I suspect that if it's AI that they're considering, it's going to be more than 50 megawatts. I believe the power and water consumption figures that the developer has provided to the city should be made public. I'm sure you have those figures. I mean, in order to be able to forecast what the city has to do for infrastructure and support of the project, you would have those numbers. Based on Mayor Joyce's remarks in the August 9th City Council meeting, is it correct to assume that the first two phases of the project will max out our ability to provide water to the development? I think that that's what you had mentioned, or somewhere like that. In any case, if that's the case, I'm just wondering how we arrived at these numbers and if there's an amount of buffer that was assumed for contingency purposes. I'd like to know if the developer has any plans to offset the carbon emissions from this project through any renewable power purchase agreements with OG&E or other power providers elsewhere. It would be much easier to justify supporting this project if such a commitment did exist. It would be very nice if we could try to negotiate something like that. I know that if it's someone like Amazon or Microsoft or Google, they are very benign citizens of the planet, and they actually do that with other of their data centers. They have made an effort, and Apple also. They go out and do power purchase agreements for renewable energy to offset the carbon emissions of their data centers. I'm hoping that they'll do that for us. One basic question I have is whether the deal that's been negotiated is fair to the community, or are we selling ourselves short? I understand that the economic development representative mentioned that this deal is comparable to other data center development agreements. It would be helpful to see the data supporting this statement, or at a minimum be provided with a range from low to high for a project of this size. It really would be nice to see some amount of supporting data that would give us more confidence that this deal is fair and equitable. Because I know that the city is very motivated to try to get more revenue, raise more revenue from projects like this, but I just want to make sure that we're not just going down trying to be the lowest common denominator against other communities from other parts of the country. I had a question about franchise fee, how that was determined, and you answered that you're doing a 3%. I'm just wondering, is that a standard rate, or how was that determined? I understand that the city will receive a franchise fee and community betterment payments, but I haven't heard what the expenditures the city will need to provide to support this project. Obviously, there will be infrastructure improvements needed for the site, including roads, water, power, grid, transmission, etc. I'm wondering who will be paying for these costs. If it's the city, I assume there's a forecast for these costs that can be provided to the public. Related to this are the following questions. Will the transmission of power to the site be using any SUA assets? What impact will this project have on the SUA local grid? Will there be any grid fluctuation issues?
Thank you, Henri.
And just one other thing, wanted to find out if there's going to be any water infrastructure impacts on water infrastructure assets with the water treatment plant. I think you tried to answer that just in the previous. Anyway, thank you very much.
We can. Those are actually the easy ones to answer. Thank you. So I'll go down through here real quick and just try to answer a few of those, and then you guys can jump in if you have additional. I mean, regarding my comment about maxing out our ability to provide water, I think the comment was related to the fact that we can handle the initial two phases. If they were going to build the third phase, that will require expansion of our water resource availability, which to answer sort of all the questions you kind of had there at the end about our additional infrastructure costs, all additional infrastructure costs that would be required because of this project are on the developer. And that's in the economic development agreement. Any expanded infrastructure, the grid, water, if they were going to build phase 3 and they needed more water, they'd have to pay for the infrastructure necessary to get that water here, or expand our plant, or whatever it is that has to be done. If it is because of the needs that they have for their facility, it's their responsibility to pay for. So what Brady was saying about they fit within the first two phases fit within our current water resource availability. We still have room in that water number for other normal growth in the city, but another huge load would probably get us to the point where we'd have to expand water infrastructure. So if it's them, it's their responsibility. If we had some other big industrial user that came in and said they wanted 1 million gallons of water a day, we would have to figure out how we would handle that. We would, that would require expansion, which, again, as Brady said, the water rights we have available are much higher than the actual ability we have to get it out of the lake and get it treated here in Stillwater. So we would have to expand our plant and expand our pipeline in that scenario. But again, that's growth. That's a good thing. That's why our predecessors 40 years ago made the really good decision to secure 50 million gallons of water, knowing that we were using 4 at the time. We have the space to make that growth, and if we need to, if this developer requires that additional capacity, they'll pay for it. Commitment to purchase carbon offsets. We certainly, I think it's a good idea to go back and say, hey, can we get some sort of assurance that they would do something like this? I agree with the concerns around wanting to have this to be a clean energy project. I'm not sure that, I think in those cases, even though the ones that you mentioned, I'm not sure that's something they commit to do up front. I think that's something they come and do afterwards, but we'll certainly look into it, for sure. Is it a good deal for the community? I think that's a really good question, and I think that's a question that all of us who have been working on this and looking at for the last couple of months at least, if going back to pre-pandemic when this conversation first started, that's a question we try to answer every time we have any kind of economic development incentive, right? Are we incentivizing something that is going to be a net benefit to our community? Are we giving them more than we have to be able to get them here, right? We want to basically be, what's the bare minimum we have to do to make this thing happen? And certainly in this process, I can tell you we have done a lot of work to identify other data center projects around the country, to identify what their taxing incentives have been, to figure out how they compare to ours. It is an incredibly complex question to try to answer because every state and every location does taxes differently. Some states don't tax personal property. Some states do, like Oklahoma does. Some states don't have the franchise fee, or they're not paying a franchise fee on power. And so trying to accumulate all the different pieces of money that would be coming back to the city versus the tax incentives that we're offering, it's tough to do, right? There was just one that one recently signed in Tulsa, which was probably the best comparable because it's close by and they're running by the same numbers. And so we looked at that agreement as much as we could to try to figure out what percentage were they getting back. I think overall, what you see in data center deals around the country is about a 30 to 40% return to the city. So about a 60% tax rebate for most of these data centers. If you add up all the different things that are, some states that's just a 60% tax rebate, and that's all they're getting. Some states, like what you're seeing in Oklahoma, is 100% tax rebate, but then there's pilot payments made back and their franchise fees made back. The best we can do the math, it's all a little bit, depends on how much power is actually sold and all that sort of thing. This is about a 30 to 35% return back to us from the taxing, from what we think we'll be giving up. But again, you're estimating a lot of numbers there, right? So it's a difficult a bit of math to do. But I will say that the amount of time and energy, we have had company representatives that came here to City Hall, sat down, had this negotiation about what that franchise fee was going to look like, we wanted to push that higher. We've pushed back on a number of the financial parts of this deal, and I think even where we are right now, where we're only looking at the first two phases and authorizing the build of the first two phases, was part of our negotiation to say, hey, we want to actually see this in action before we commit to allowing the full 6 phases to be built. So it's a good question, and we certainly, it's hard to publish a sheet that shows all of this stuff, because some of it, for one thing, for the folks who are negotiating these things, are subject to non-disclosure agreements under the fact that this is still an evaluation phase, and so we can't, and that the company doesn't necessarily disclose all of its proprietary use of water and power and how much and all that kind of thing. We get sort of big round numbers that say we need probably about this much. So what I will say about all that, Henri, is that Dan and Lisa are the two preeminent economic development lawyers in the state of Oklahoma. The work that Brady has done as sort of our lead on this over the last several months in doing the research around other states and other cities to see what these deals have been. I trust the advice we're getting right now. I certainly understand the question, and we certainly would love to sit down and talk to you more about what numbers we do have and what we can share. But I do think it compares favorably with what we've seen around the country. And I think it, again, if you're comparing it on that scale, yes, I think we're getting the similar deal that you would get that they would get somewhere else. If you compare it to what's happening in Stillwater right now on this specific 360 acres of land, it's a fantastic deal, because that's state-owned land. We don't get any money. We don't get any state tax off of that land at all. And Mr. Batchelor's comparison of saying each phase is like building $250,000, $300,000 homes, that's not happening on that land anytime soon. And so, yes, there are. I think, as Brady said earlier, we have been very cognizant of the potential risks here, and especially those risks, to sort of tag on to what Ms. Cornwell asked earlier. Those risks have been mainly on our side focused on making sure we're not overtaxing our infrastructure. And I will just say that I think the work that has been done by the team that we've had here doing it has not left any rocks unturned over. That's not the right way to phrase that, but you know what I mean. Unturned. Anyway. So again, there's more conversation to be had there. I'm sure we can try to answer some more of those a little bit more in depth. But I do think it's a good deal. Anybody want to add anything to that? Since I just
you made the note, and I did too. Henri, thanks again for your comments. The 3% franchise fee that you asked about is very similar to the 3% franchise fee that we have with Oklahoma State University. And we also went through a similar process with the vote of the people in order to authorize OG&E to serve the OSU campus. And we receive a 3% revenue as a city. And as far as the question about, is it our infrastructure, our transmission lines? No, it will not be. The SUA, the SUA has the ability to still serve the site for mid-level voltage, the security lighting, the office lighting. But as far as the transmission lines and the cost of that is all on OG&E. That is not on the back of our ratepayers here at the city of Stillwater. There is no additional taxes, fees, or anything related to the project as far as on the electric grid side. It's solely on OG&E. And Sean is here, the attorney for the company. He may be able to answer some of the questions on renewables, but that may be something we follow up, like the mayor mentioned, after more can be revealed, I guess, of the company name. Yeah. Yeah, we'll work on that.
We
That's
will
a great
absolutely
idea.
follow up on that.
Yeah.
Yep. Brad Sherman. Did I get that right? Yes. Sherman. Close.
Brad Sherman, 1727 Fiddler's Hill. Thanks for your time. Let me get my glasses on. I'm getting too old. A couple questions I have is basically also has already been covered, is like the infrastructure. My concern is that we'll put in phase 1, phase 2, and then turn it right around and phase going forward, the company will come back and say, I need more infrastructure. We've already got the facilities here, and a lot of city councils or governments have kowtowed to that, and so we're always being stuck with more infrastructure.
Should come on the city council. Make sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I would love to. I guess I'm too argumentative for that sometimes. One of the questions that I have, one of the first ones is that part of this process is that the people are playing cat and mouse with multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar companies. I prefer to have them come and present their plan to the people, not behind closed doors to the city. It's not that I don't trust you guys, but like one of the questions I have is, how big is phase 1 building space? How big is their data center? It's called a raised floor, opposed to how big the building is. Are we talking 50,000 square feet, 100,000 square feet? We as people don't know the size of the building, so we don't know what the infrastructure is going to be needed in power.
So that is in our project plan. It's been posted on our website for a couple months, and it's 300,000 square feet per building.
Right, but what I'm reading, that's proposed. You
Yes.
know, I can propose a 1 million square feet house.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
So that's the reason the company, I think, owes the citizens a better refine of what they're talking about putting in. And I understand that it's proprietary information. They don't want their competitor trying to figure out what it is. So you're doing that cat and mouse to us. I think some of the citizens need to know that beforehand. The next question I have is kind of along that line, is when is the anticipated start date for building, and what's the anticipated completion date? Are we talking them building out in 10 years, or are we talking about them building out in 6 months? I know those are kind of unrealistic timeframes, but what timeframes are we looking at? There's a 25-year timeframe for the pilot. So, what constraints are we having? Because it's known that companies come in and they say they want to be operational in a year time frame, and we're looking at 2 years down the road and nothing's happened. For example, the new plant that's going out where World Color Press used to be. They're supposed to be in already production now, and from what I understand, they're not in production or even close to getting in production, and they're already a year behind. The water usage is the other question I had, which has kind of been answered, that the city has capacity and has further capacity for, like, say 3, but not 4, 5, and 6. Also, I would like to make sure that if there's somewhere in the contract that when we do get there, you guys are telling me, and I believe you guys, that they're responsible for the infrastructure going forward. That's something I like to see more refined and written. So when they come back to us in phase 3 and 4, it's like, you've already said that you're going to be putting in power and stuff. I know a lot of data centers, and I have experience in software and data centers. I know a lot of the data centers have multiple sources of power. So if OG&E's main line happen to go down, you have a secondary source of power. Is Stillwater going to be a secondary source? There's going to be a single source power company?
Yeah, for that high level voltage.
Okay, that's...
With backup generators.
Yes, a backup generator, but a lot of them will have a secondary power in case OG&E's plant burns down. They have a secondary source. And also for the infrastructure for internet connectivity, do we know who they're going to use? Are they going to use any Stillwater facilities for any of that? Okay. A lot of data centers use gray water for the water. They're not using pure water. Do you know if they're going to be using any gray water? And which gray water is? It's water that's made at the wastewater treatment plant. It's portable, but not necessarily drinkable. So a lot of data centers are using that as an offset. Do they plan to be doing that?
We don't know.
Okay. See, to me, that's a big.
Well, no, in the economic development agreement, it's clean water. That number I mentioned was 2.7 MGD of clean water.
Okay, but
So they're
that's,
designing their facility around that.
okay, because that's a question that could help us get around a water issue. And I always keep hearing, I've been back in Stillwater for about 5 years, and since I've been here, it's the sky is falling down, we don't have infrastructure for water, our pipes are freezing, they're breaking, we don't have all the pumps, we don't have enough power for the city, but now I'm hearing that we have plenty of extra resource, so it's kind of like the sky is falling kind of a thing.
No, yeah, sure.
The other question that may not be able to be answered is that what is the delta of the taxes that they're not paying, but they're paying in pilot? I haven't heard, I understand they're getting a sweetheart deal. We want to give them a sweetheart deal. We want them here. But the delta. The last question that I have, and I don't know how true this is, I looked up since we don't know who the company is, I looked up the LLC through the Oklahoma Corporation, and I noticed that the Kipper LLC that keeps being thrown around was actually registered as a foreign LLC.
Okay. They're not, yeah, we can answer that.
Okay, so that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Well, a foreign LLC means that company's not based in this state.
You're right.
It doesn't mean foreign. It doesn't mean it's based somewhere outside the country. It just means that LLC was not formed in the state of Oklahoma. It was formed in another state and registered in the state of Oklahoma.
Correct. It's registered in Delaware, but addressed in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, that's what's called they refer to that as foreign.
Okay, that's why I brought this up last,
state.
because I didn't understand for sure.
Again, just to try to run through a couple of these, I mean, I understand the concerns around not having the information about the business itself and exactly how they're going to build and exactly what they're going to do. I mean, I think a little bit of that goes to the fact that our job as the city is not to run their business for them.
True.
We're not providing them with business startup funds. We're not, we're not investing in their business and how they're building this center.
Well, we are by not giving them tax. Sorry.
I understand. What we're doing is providing a tax incentive for the investment of money in a piece of land. They're going to invest. The plan talks about is the investment of a certain amount of money. We're not going to dictate exactly how they design a building or exactly which method they use to cool, whatever. Initially, we're talking about clean water, but that potentially could be different in phases 2 or 3 or 4, right? If they come back and they say, well, we want to do it different this phase. Okay, we'll talk about that then. But our job is not necessarily to help them design a data center. It's to say, if you're going to build a facility like this on this land, here's what we're able to incentivize you to do. So some of that is the fact that we don't necessarily, our job is not necessarily to get into the weeds of exactly how every switch is going to get flipped. All that being said, we're also, they're in a competitive environment. They're not going to disclose all that particular information to everybody publicly. Like you said, their competitors are interested in that kind of thing. And that's just the fact of the matter. That's just how these things work. And I've said this to several people, over the course of this whole thing and with our other tax incentive deals that we've done in Stillwater. I don't really like giving tax incentives. I don't really like the idea of saying that, hey, you can pay less taxes if you want to come here. It's the world we live in, right? I don't like federal earmarks in Congress either, but it's the world we live in. And if we're not going to play in that game, this data center will get built somewhere else. And the benefits that community gets, that they will get. And what we didn't talk about a lot in the, initially in this thing, we're talking about $111 million in projected city revenue over the next 25 years, just from these first 2 phases. Almost all of that is dedicated to public facilities. It's dedicated to things like parks and libraries and swimming pools and public facilities that we do have a struggle with funding. And so that is money that we as a community absolutely can use and will use well. And if we're not willing to be a part of how these things work, then we just won't get them. And that's fine. If that's a community decision we want to make, we don't want to play the game, okay. But we just broke ground on a $30 million airport terminal that is partly funded by federal earmarks. And you know what? If we're not getting it, then that money's going to build an airport terminal in California. So it is some of that's just part of what we're dealing with in the world we live in. Water, just to address the sky is falling water issue. The concerns we have about our water infrastructure here in Stillwater and what we're raising money, federally earmarked money sometimes, to help with our water infrastructure is really about the redundancy of our water supply, which is something we've talked to this company about. They understand the fact that we have one water line that comes down from Call Lake. that if there are problems with that one water line, that causes a problem for our water supply. So our major concern right now is funding to create redundancy in our water supply so that all 50 million of those gallons can get here, and that we're creating some local storage so that there's backup and that sort of thing. Expanding our water plant, all of those things actually kind of dovetail with this project, right? Because as they grow, if they do grow, to those next phases, they'll actually be able to help provide some of the investment that we're going to end up needing anyway to make those expansions and make that redundancy in our water line. So it's actually this project fits in kind of well with the kinds of water projects that we're actually already trying to raise money for. So great questions. Really appreciate the conversation about them, but hopefully that's a little bit additional information there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Ophelia B.
Hello, I'm Ophelia B. I live here in Stillwater. This is my first time talking at a meeting like this.
Welcome.
So sorry if I'm a little awkward, but I just have a couple of questions, and I kind of want to echo some things that other people have already said. So to start with, why are the voters expected to vote on this without us being provided all of the information? And will we be provided this information before the vote? Because it would be nice to see breakdowns of numbers and to know exactly which company's coming in and things like that before we actually put our votes on paper. That way, that way we won't regret our votes after the fact if we do vote yes for it. Because I do like the idea of the money coming into Stillwater and helping with the school system. But there's a sense of morality that goes with that can't really sell our soul to the devil to get better schools. So that's kind of on my mind there. And then another thing is just echoing the concerns about green energy. I know we've already heard it a bunch of times tonight, so I don't have much else to say on it, but just want to say that is a concern. And then the last thing is this a pathway for, in the future, outside companies to come and try to take over the Stillwater power grid? Because, yeah, that's not an immediate concern with this, but having a company come in this close to the city seems a little sketchy in my mind, but I don't know how all of this works. So I just wanted to bring up that concern so that if it is foolish, then it can be wiped away.
Sure.
So, and I'll yield the rest of my time on this.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. In terms of information for the vote, so there is a vote. The only public vote that is a part of this project is a vote on November 5th to grant OG&E a franchise to serve this development, this specific development, and only this specific development. The vote passing or failing doesn't necessarily approve or disapprove of the project itself, right? I don't know, we've really talked about this, but if for whatever reason the people of Stillwater don't want to grant OG&E the right to serve it, Stillwater Power could still serve it. We could still do the project, right? The project is not dependent necessarily on the vote. The company has requested the option of using OG&E, and for them to have the option of using OG&E, we have to be able to grant them a franchise agreement. Stillwater is a public power community, so anytime anybody in the city of Stillwater, other than Stillwater Power, serving any piece of property in the city of Stillwater requires us to vote to give them a franchise agreement. And we can do that in a very specific, limited way. Like I think Brady mentioned earlier, we've done that before with OSU. OSU is served by OG&E. I don't know when that vote was. None of us was.
2007.
Okay. And we granted that specific right for OG&E to serve on campus. And then the city of Stillwater receives a 3% franchise fee. So in this case, the vote is just if this thing gets built, do you guys agree with or do you support the idea of OG&E being able to serve that facility and the city of Stillwater receiving a 3% franchise fee? The only information you really need is that, not to say that, we're having this full conversation, but in terms of that vote, it really depends on, does this project get built or not? And if this project does get built, is it okay if OG&E serves it? That's the question on the ballot. again, it doesn't really, it's not, do I like the project, do I not like the project, am I, going to support this or not? It's just, if this thing happens, should OG&E serve it? I'm pretty positive about that idea, because it does take the burden off of Stillwater Electric Utilities service and our people in town. And if there's an outage, they're not going to be out there trying to get this data center back up. They're going to be able to focus on other things. It also, as we said, the 3% franchise fee is basically a payment for the ability for OG&E to use our public rights of way and the sorts of things where they're going to have to put poles. But really, there's not a lot of cost in it for us. It is a pretty clear, just a 3%. It's like collecting a tax that we get to then put into our public infrastructure. We get to go build things with it. We get to improve our city with it. And so, and it doesn't cost us a whole lot, doesn't cost us much at all to do that. So I actually really am excited about the idea that we would give OG&E the right to come serve this project. But honestly, even if you're 100% against the project, you're still going to have the opportunity to go vote and say, well, if this thing happens, which I hate, I still think we should get the 3% from OG&E off of it, right? I mean, so you can still vote yes, even if you hate the project. Or, again, the other way, if you really love the project and you really want Stillwater Electric Utility to supply it, I guess you could vote no. But it's not a vote on the project itself. I hope that makes sense. Pathway into the Stillwater for other companies. I mean, again, it's always going to be a question, right? I mean, anytime a council is going to have to deal with a project like this where somebody's saying, I want to use somebody else's power, we're going to have to make that decision. And we just proclaimed it Public Power Week here in the city of Stillwater, which is sort of ironic that we're having this conversation. But I also really love the fact that this is a public power community, right? I mean, from a home and a business standpoint, our power crews here are fantastic. They do a great job. They're responsive. We're not waiting for somebody from some other community to come provide power to us. Stillwater Electric Utility has been around since 1901 and does a great job of providing power to this community. That's not going to change. Voting yes on that will not have any effect on Stillwater Utility Authority's or Stillwater Electric Utility's ability to serve this community well and continue to do what it does. All of us are still going to be paying the same bill to the same people and relying on the same folks to come fix our power. It won't have any effect on Stillwater Electric Utility.
And I'll add that because the question was could this be a pathway to some outside company taking over our electric grid? The answer is no, because for anybody to come in and serve inside our city, there still has to be a citizen vote to allow that to happen. Good point. So there's no way that allowing this to happen on that parcel of ground of 320 acres or whatever it is, they can't go 1 foot outside of that zone without another vote of the people. Okay?
Yeah. And back to Henri's question about risk and Robin's too, about the due diligence that we have, the amount of hours we have put in, even hiring consultants to look at the evaluation of SUA serving versus the OG&E franchise. There's been significant due diligence and work on that from the city standpoint in order for us to come to the place where we are with allowing it to go to the vote of the people.
Douglas Dollar.
Mayor Joyce and council members, thank you for the opportunity to just say here. There's nothing like following so many speakers and have all your thunders taken away. All the wind taken out of your sail. But by the way, I have a sailboat. Now, this is my understanding. The project has been planning for a number of years, but little information has been available. There is growing concern, for example, in Parkview Estates, where I live, by people there about the effects of the data center on our community, because it'll be right across the road from us. For example, here's a post just made on the website or Facebook by a person. Data centers create few jobs relative to the real estate they consume. Most data centers require few employees, and increasing data center automation will shrink workforce even further. Sadly, data centers deplete and contaminate water resources, pollute the air, cause urban heat islands, and displace populations. The reason I read that is because, well, I majored in journalism at OSU, and I was a public affairs officer in the Army, and I know how hard it is to get information out, really hard. And this illustrates the way people see that data centers are tremendously controversial. For example, on water, I mentioned sailing. My sailboat's up on Kaw Lake. I'm very familiar with Kaw Lake. Enid just, watch their project. Enid just put in a pipeline to Kaw Lake. Other cities are looking at it. Even Norman, our bitter enemy, OU's going to the southeast, won't be that way anymore. But even Norman looked at putting a pipeline up to Kaw Lake. And we've seen the water going down. We've started reading articles. This has caused me to read articles about the water. Oklahoma, western Oklahoma at least faces potential future water crisis. I even read an article about they're looking at railroading water out to the west for the farms. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Mm-hmm. So I think the water question for the future down the road, we've had communities with water issues here in Stillwater before. I won't go on because these folks have been a lot better than me in raising the issues. I guess my question then is there going to be ways specific questions can be directed and answered? You mentioned a website, and there's been concern about getting information. The city's workers have been very good at answering questions. So what is it make it easy for citizens to ask more about this project? Can they simply, I know there's a city Facebook page. Mm-hmm. What would you recommend? I'll leave my question at that. What would you recommend we do to get specific answers? Okay.
Thank you, sir. In terms of that contact question, I mean, any one of the city councilors by email or reach out through social media or Facebook or whatever. If you have a specific question that you can submit to any of the city councilors at our website, at our Facebook, at our email addresses. I'm mayor@stillwaterok.gov. Councilor Clark, Councilor Harden, Councilor Jaloski, Councilor Hawkins. Those are all easy ways to do it. City staff, you can email Brady directly as the interim city manager. We've gotten several emails this week. I'm a couple behind. I haven't gotten back to all of them that emailed me on like Friday and Saturday, but we're keeping up. Or I will, like I got one that was a pretty detailed reading of the project plan, which the project plan is posted on our website. If you go to stillwaterok.gov and you just type in the search box data center, it will bring up the page for this. It's got the project plan on it. And we had somebody that went through very fine-tooth comb and checked all the numbers and sent a whole Word document of different questions and different, which I directly sent to Brady, and he sent to the law firm just to make sure we had enough people looking at it to make sure we were, and it was great. It was really good feedback and good questions. And so I would say that's probably the quickest and easiest way to do it is just send any of us an email or get in touch with us and ask those questions. I will just say briefly about the Kaw Lake and water generally. Yes, water resource and water availability from the state of Oklahoma and much of the western United States, if not all of the United States, is always a concern. Kaw Lake is a Army Corps of Engineers reservoir. We were one of the founding members that built that reservoir. And we have 50 million gallons a day in water rights out of it. And when somebody like Enid wants to go tap into it as well, the Army Corps of Engineers does all of the studies that it's got to do to make sure that there is enough capacity in that lake for the long run to be able to feed additional communities. Kaw Lake has been historically actually one of the most resilient, if not the most resilient reservoir in the state of Oklahoma. It sits upstream from pretty much everything else, and so it stays pretty full. We actually haven't, even back in the 10 and 11 when there was really serious drought for a long time, Kaw Lake was one of the few that really didn't see a whole lot of problem from that drought. So again, I think this goes back to city leadership 40 years ago who made very, very good decisions about securing for us a water supply that, I mean, nothing lasts forever, right? But we have water rights, secured water rights in that facility that more than cover what our needs are now as a city, and more than cover, even if this data center builds out all 6 of its sites, we'll still have plenty of room in our daily water rights out of that lake. And it being an Army Corps lake, it is extremely highly regulated. It is extremely heavily studied. They are on that all the time to make sure that they're not creating too much of a drain or putting too much stress on that reservoir. So we do have, and this is one of the reasons a big company wants to put $3 billion worth of development in our city, because our city government had the foresight 40 years ago to secure this kind of an asset for our community, and it's a fantastic asset. I mean, I think I certainly feel, and I'm sure speak to everybody up here, that we feel a great responsibility to preserve that asset and make sure that we're not doing something to it that would somehow hinder our ability to grow in the future. But also recognize the fact that they did that in 1978 or whenever it was initially put together, so that we could take advantage of these kinds of opportunities for our town. We would not have this opportunity if we did not have that facility. And they went through the struggle that they went through to build Caw Lake and the Caw Lake pipeline, so that when we had an opportunity as a community to see an investment like this, an investment that will bring hundreds of millions of dollars of new revenue to our community, we have the opportunity to at least consider it, right? We would not have this opportunity at all without that. And so we also, I mean, at the same time say, well, yeah, okay, great. That's, we don't want to just use it all up. And so again, we've been very careful about those numbers, but I do again feel strongly, and Brady can talk more about our staff and the amount of time they spent analyzing water usage.
And Doug, is your mother Gayla? Is that your?
Yeah, how did you know that?
Well,
no,
she's called me, and we've spent about.
I was getting a call. I think it's
that's
from
probably her. Well, she's called me about 3 times. We've had probably 3 hours of conversation, and I love talking to her. And I just want to say thank you to everyone that's talking tonight and seems so defensive of our infrastructure, because there is no one more defensive of our infrastructure than our water engineers, Candy, Bill Millis, and David Barth, and trying to get them to agree to something they are so protective of our system. And so much due diligence. They have been working with the engineers from the company, working through all these numbers. And so I want to assure our citizens listening and all those that have been here, and I really appreciate you all being here, our engineering staff that Candy leads is extremely defensive of our infrastructure. And so I do want everyone to know that so much study has gone into this project. The other thing I completely agree with you on is on our increased communication. We've had a lot of people reach out in the last week or two, which I love, getting phone calls from your mom, and also from emails from citizens. We have, Don Dotson and I met today, and we're excited. We're going to launch a lot more frequently asked FAQs going out on social media, a lot more information about the vote, and a lot more information about just information for the vote. We're not telling citizens how to vote. We're just trying to provide the information so citizens can make educated votes, and then also just the communication on the project in general. And so a lot more information is going to be put out on our city social media channels and website here shortly. So appreciate all your insight and your comments.
Okay, Gayla's my wife, but I'm going to give her a hard time.
Well, I really
there you
apologize. Look at it. Throw me under the bus. It's
trouble
fine.
now, Brady.
Yeah, I'm in trouble. Tell her to call me tomorrow. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'd also like to add a couple things. Number one, some of us are out meeting with groups and having conversations, and if someone would like to have someone to come make a presentation to their group, one of us can certainly come do that. For a moment, to shamelessly plug Rotary, Brady is going to be at Frontier Rotary on Thursday speaking, and by 1:30 I will have a video of that posted to our YouTube channel. And so if you just go to YouTube and search for Stillwater Frontier Rotary, you'll find our video right there. It'll be the first one listed. So that's an opportunity.
While he's doing that, I'll be at the Lions Club
There you go.
Thursday at noon.
And also, wherever Mr. Dollar went, he mentioned Parkview Estates, and I'm assuming that was a noise concern. The first 2 phases are going to be built on the far east side of that property, which is, those buildings will be about 3/4 of a mile from Perkins Road. So it's going to be a long way from your neighborhood. And plus, keep in mind, these are water-cooled facilities. They're not air-cooled. There are not going to be giant fans on those roofs roaring 24 hours a day. It's going to be a water-cooled facility, so much quieter. The facility has to meet our noise ordinance. Light industrial typically is less than 65 decibels is the expectation. This facility is going to be less than 60 decibels. So it's going to meet the light industrial requirements. It's going to be on the far east side of the property, which is not very densely populated at all. We're starting in the right place in terms of making sure everything works the way it's supposed to work.
My turn, 65 decibels. We looked at, see what that was. If you're in your car going 60 miles an hour with the windows up, that's the sound in your car of 65 decibels. So it's not very loud.
I think the other thing there, when you're thinking about sound and noise, is it's 65 decibels at the source, and as you move out from that, that gets softer by quite a bit. I think I'm so grateful to all the community members that came out. Oh, we do. We have one more. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Should I say not now? I was going to just say that because I think all of ours so far, I think there is this kind of common theme of stewardship, whether it's our natural resources, like our water, looking at renewable energy. And I think it is something, as the mayor's mentioned and Brady's mentioned, it's something that the team, with the city's team, has been looking at. But I do appreciate your pushing. And I think it's important for us to, as citizens and as leaders, to kind of continue to push as well. I know in my work life, I'm very encouraged by the amount of incentives and earmarks that our government is putting out right now to encourage and foster innovation in renewable energy and make that happen. I maybe share your frustration sometimes that it isn't happening as quickly as we all might like for that to happen, but I do think the opportunities for things like renewable energy on projects this size we need more opportunity there. I think the government's trying to make more opportunity there. It's maybe not happening quite as quickly, and it may not be available as fast as we would want it to for these types of projects, but I think it's still our responsibility to push and kind of look at those things. And so I think hearing from you all and asking those questions, I'm not sure do we answer well enough how people continue? I mean, yes, emails, but I think somebody was maybe asking for an easier button maybe for that. I don't know if that's in the plan from a communication, if our website would directly have, you can on the website.
Do we have like any FAQs or anything on the website that we could be adding as we get questions and get responses that we could have it?
Yeah. This week.
This week.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yep. We're launching all of that this week.
Perfect.
It'll be great.
Okay.
And I know we have one more speaker, but let me just tag on to something that the Vice Mayor said, and just in terms of thanking people for coming out. This is exactly how city government should work. You should come out and you should speak and advocate for what you are concerned with. And so thank you all for taking your time this evening to do so.
And we have one other speaker signed up, and it's Roger Ghost. The Boy Scouts picked a good night to be here.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
They're getting lots of civic engagement experience.
Again, Roger Ghost, 1120 East Connell. I was here to do what you want done next week, but a question for frequently asked questions. If we could get a ballpark of what it would cost the Stillwater Electric Utility to serve this facility with what OG&E is going to be providing at no cost to us and actually paying us. So I'd like to
good question. We'll
see
put
if
it
we
on
could
there.
have that number. Thank you.
I thought you were asking us to build a ballpark.
Oh.
I mean, give us a minute.
There is some land out there. But
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you. All right, I don't have anyone else signed up to speak. I will close the public hearing. Or do you want to, before I close the public hearing?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to, in light of the questions, I would like to supplement my presentation briefly. I want to emphasize that we are in the middle of a process, and this is really legally the first official public step for public information. And I know everyone here is interested in openness, and that is the purpose of this hearing. So we take these questions seriously, but I want to put that in context. There are 3 parts to the approval process. Following the public hearings, the City Council will have to approve 3 documents. One will be the project plan. The second will be the incentive agreement, which is the city's authorization for the other taxing jurisdictions to then consider whether they will agree to the tax exemption. And the third action, which must be approved, is the economic development agreement, which spells out the relationship between the community and the developing company that will create this data center. And it is in that document that many of these issues will be addressed. And I want to say that over the years, I and our firm have worked with many communities throughout the state of Oklahoma, and we have been in the forefront of some of the most pioneering economic development efforts in this state. And looking at those experiences in other communities and what we have observed here over the last few years working with the city of Stillwater is that your elected leadership and your city staff have been remarkable in their diligence with respect to this project. They have asked the hard questions, they have searched out the challenging answers, and they have looked for ways to make sure that this community is very fully protected. And many of those protections have to do with the implementation steps. They've been working on it now for the last few years. This is very complex, but there's nothing secret about it. And the relationship will be spelled out in those 3 documents. I'll give you a significant example. There's been some concern expressed about the costs and burden which the city might assume in connection with trying to provide the water, for example, for the operation of this data center. The Economic Development Agreement, which is being negotiated and will be considered for approval by this council after the approval of the project plan and your blessing on the incentive agreement, says, for example, that if this data center development imposes additional demands of capacity on this community, the cost will be borne by the developer company, not by this community. That's an example of how, in the process, your staff and your elected leadership is ensuring that this development does not impose an additional burden on the community. I know, for example, that the company that we are dealing with considers clean energy a very high priority. An appropriate place to express that high priority might be in connection with a special provision in the Economic Development Agreement that acknowledges that high priority, and what they're doing with that high priority is, as was suggested by one of the questioners and one of the speakers, is creating offsetting clean energy developments and supporting them to offset the demands created by their developments. We can press for that broad, strong commitment to clean energy in the Economic Development Agreement, and I will, and my firm would be quite willing to recommend that we tender that as a part of the final terms of the agreement, which would later come before you for consideration. Finally, I want to say that in connection with the choices, like OG&E provide the power versus the local municipality and its utility authority providing the power, the staff and the city leadership has gone through the same kind of very careful analysis before reaching the conclusion that all things considered, the net burden on the community would be less if OG&E provides a service, and it would be more immediately available, and you'd have an assurance of a new net revenue stream that could be leveraged into other economic developments without an added additional cost of operation for your existing electric power utility. So these questions are being looked at, and the answers are very thoughtful. And I just want to provide, from our experience and observation, the knowledge that this leadership and this city staff are dedicated servants, and in their diligence to protect this community and respond to the kind of concerns that have led to the questions tonight, you are absolutely top flight, and you have our unreserved endorsement. And the people should be reassured about the kind of leadership and the kind of quality that they have working on their behalf in this community.
Thank you, sir. This time I will close the public hearing. Again, that's the end of hearing number 1. Hearing number 2 will be November 4th here at our city council meeting. I will also just mention that tonight on first read on ordinances in item 10 here, we will have the first reading of the ordinance that would adopt this plan. That is just the first reading of that ordinance. We just got it on tonight so that we can do that. Have it done, the first reading of it, and then we won't do the second reading of that ordinance until after the second public hearing. We can't do it legally. We can't do this. We can't adopt that ordinance without the second hearing. And so, if you see that on the agenda, or when we get to that tonight, that's why we're doing the first reading of that ordinance. All right, that takes us to item 8 on the agenda, which is general orders. 8A is the presentation of lead and copper water rule service line inventory by David Barth.
Yes.
Don't take it personally, David.
Do what?
They're all leaving, but don't take it personally.
Oh.
And I'm going to blame you.
So now we found out who was actually here for the data center and who was not.
All right. I was told to be brief, so are there any questions? No, I'm just kidding. Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. David Barth with Engineering here tonight to present to you the lead and copper rural water service line inventory. This is just a presentation. There's no action with this agenda item. Also, I just wanted to say this pipe that I'm showing here is not within our distribution system.
Good.
So hopefully to shed any concerns there. Before I do this, I just want to say that I'm the face of this tonight, but this was a huge effort by a lot of people in water utilities engineering, the water utilities department, GIS, and communications. I specifically want to thank Saeed Nori, who stayed here this evening, and he's back here. Raise your hand, Saeed. So anyway, he's our newest employee in the engineering team, and he's actually the person that helped quite a bit with the map that I'm going to show you. Also, Ben Jenkins, who actually had to leave. He would have stayed, but he's got a couple of youngsters at home. Previous staff member Roy Hayden, who left us in April to go into consulting, but he was a huge. Candy Starring, my director, who keeps me in line all the time. Water utilities staff, James Driscoll, Kelly Hitch, Jackson Dozier, Jason Tyler, Freddie Pitts, Billy Foltz with communications, who helped with, he created the web page I'm going to show you, and then June Gao with our GIS team. So all of those people worked to make this happen. And so the reason why I'm here tonight is because we have an obligation to do something by next Wednesday. And so I just wanted to show it to you all before we did that. We'll be publishing a web page for all to participate and see. So anyway, two big things to note. There are no known lead service lines in our distribution system. And the drinking water that we provide is tested for lead and copper on a regular basis. So, the bottom there is a timeline I'm not going to bore you with, but basically in 2021, the lead and copper rule revision, which was after some things happened in Flint, Michigan, and other communities, the EPA passed this, and that's what kind of set this deadline for next week for us to provide this inventory to our community, as well as a map to our community to provide more information about lead service lines. So what is a water service line? Just briefly, this is a picture showing the water main that would be the city-owned water main that's in our distribution system that brings water to businesses and homes. And then you've got a tap that's connected to that that has two pieces separated by the water meter. And so the piece there between the water main and the meter is the city-owned or system-owned service line. And then the service line that's connecting the meter to the home or the business is owned by the customer. So when you think of a service, there's two pieces of pipe involved there. So about the city's inventory, we have 18,840 water services. So that means over 30, 39,000, 37,000. Sorry, I'm tired. So anyway, water pipe segments that are at each of these locations, whether it's a home or a business. And of those, 18,071 have materials that are considered non-lead. So that would be PVC, HDPE, copper. 278 of the 18,071 of those services have galvanized pipe as the material, so that will be required to be replaced with something that's coming out next year called the Lead and Copper Rule Improvements. So right now we're under the LCRR, which is the Lead and Copper Rule Revision. And then the remaining 778 services have materials that are labeled as unknown. And so those are unknown because during our visual inspection, we just couldn't determine what the materials were. And so we have about 1,000 people that we'll be mailing letters to that are in the 278 plus the 778. We have to notify them with a letter saying, that we will, as we continue to work on our system, we'll try to identify what these materials are. If you want to if you want to identify them yourselves, you can, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But we've got the Lead and Copper Rule Revision webpage that this is not active yet on the city website, but I'm showing it to you. This is what it'll look like next week. So we've got information about lead service lines or service lines in general, the EPA's Lead and Copper Rule. There's a link over here you can click, and it takes you to the EPA website. You can read all kinds of information about service lines and lead. The biggest piece for us here is this interactive map that we've created. So anybody can, starting next week, can go to the website. They can click on this. So we took our inventory, we linked it to our GIS system, and so over here on the left, we've got an explanation of, you've got this round circle that's split in half. There's the left half is the city-owned service line. The right half is the customer-owned service line, and these colors were dictated by DEQ. So anyway, green is non-lead, and gray means it's either galvanized requiring replacement or it's unknown. And so just wanted to reemphasize, we don't have any known lead service lines in the community. So two things, you can zoom in. Like for example, here's Westwood Elementary. I could zoom in and I could click on that, and it could tell me, that it's got non-lead material unknown service line for that particular property. You can also go up here and you can type in your address. So, I could type in City Hall, and eventually it comes up, and you click that, and it zooms you over to City Hall there. So anyway, it's an interactive map. It will be updated until we identify all of the unknown service materials, or and then as well as when things get replaced. So let me go back to the website. There. So the next thing we've got is a paragraph about how we prepared our inventory. So just some decisions that we had to make. The next thing we've got here is a button that you can click, which takes you to it's like a survey, but basically if you had a plumber work on your service line in your yard and you determined that the material was different than what we were showing on our inventory, then you can report that by clicking here, and it takes you to this, and you put in some information about your property and your name and your email, and we'll have to come out and confirm that and what the material was. The bottom of this then is some FAQs that would provide more information to somebody interested in learning more about service lines. And then at the bottom is the link to our inventory. So these are the requirements that that we have with the lead and copper rule revision is to publish a map, to publish the inventory, to make it available to our public so that they are aware of what what the service line materials are serving their homes and businesses. So what can property owners do if they're concerned about their service line? One, you can have your service line inspected by a plumber and tested for lead. You can have your drinking water tested for lead. There are labs in Stillwater that you can use for that service, and they'll tell you how to collect the sample and what to do with it. If you detect lead in your drinking water for some reason, if you've got lead pipes in your home or something like that, there are filters that they make that filter it out. You can buy point-of-use filters that install on faucets, or you can buy pitchers where you put the water in the pitcher and then you pour it out of the pitcher and it's filtered. So there's options there, but let's see the next. So next steps, we're going to activate the webpage for public access by next Wednesday. Like I said, we're going to send out about 1,000 notification letters to each of the property owners with services labeled unknown or galvanized, because that's a requirement of the rule. We're going to continue to update our map and inventory as we gather additional information. And when the lead and copper rule improvements is adopted, we will comply with that, which means we'll be replacing the galvanized service lines that are city-owned. Customer-owned service lines, we won't be replacing. We'll notify people, and they can choose to replace it. But we will be replacing any galvanized, or if we determine that if we find a lead service line, we will replace it on the city side. So with that, any questions?
Councilors?
Is there anything in this law that would require a homeowner to upgrade their supply line from the meter to the home before they sold their home? Is there anything that the federal government's going to force that kind of major investment?
I have not. That's a great question. I have not seen the lead and copper rule improvements yet. I know that there will be requirements in there for replacing service lines, but I don't know if there's something that forces them to do that. I mean, obviously you would have to disclose it when you sold the property. And lead service lines are not the culprit here. It's what happens if the water chemistry isn't right that then causes the lead to leach out of the pipe and then poison people. So, but yes, that's a really great question.
Okay.
I do think I believe I've read that there's potential funding available for, I think EPA has some funding programs available for line replacement. I'm not familiar whether or not it's for municipalities or if it's for homeowners, but I'm pretty sure when that rule revision started happening and after the Flint, and I think with the infrastructure bill, there was funding in there for line replacement. So maybe something for us to look at too.
For sure.
Is there anything I couldn't see closely on the map in terms of like the 287 pipes where we have galvanized metal? Is there a specific location where that occurs, or is it randomly throughout town, or is there any rhyme or reason for why that would occur where it does?
That's another great question. I would have to, I don't know, James Driscoll might be able to lend a hand on that one. He's more involved with our people that are out in the field.
James Driscoll, Water Utilities Director. Very good question. They are a little bit of both. They're scattered, but more concentrated in older parts of town.
Thank you.
Anything further, councilors? That's a ton of work. That's just a ton of work. 38,000 different pipe segments that you got to identify what the material is, and looking forward to seeing the website and reading some of that information about how you guys went out and did all that. But we really appreciate that. That's really valuable information for people in our community. It's great to hear that we don't know of any lead that's out there in any of our lines, but appreciate the work that you guys are doing to make sure everybody's safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 8B, approve a professional services agreement with CEC Corporation. Travis Small.
Good evening, Council. My name is Travis Small. I'm the Engineering Manager for Transportation and Drainage here at the city. I'm really excited to be here tonight to talk to you a little bit about the Knobloch 4th and Lincoln Improvements Project, and to possibly request action by the governing body to approve the professional services agreement, authorize total professional services expenditures, authorize the budget amendment, and authorize execution of the professional services agreement with CEC. This slide shows you the project locations involved. And back in 2001, Council approved the FY21 Pavement Management Plan, which included the Knobloch project from 4th to University. Also, SUA in that same year approved a waterline project that coincided with the Knobloch project. And earlier this year, staff came and presented a plan to add additional areas to the Knobloch project, and those locations are shown here. The project does include roadway, water, and streetscaping. This slide shows you the existing pavement conditions as they stand right now. I would like to point out that the red indicates, and for those of you looking on the back, it may look a little more orange, but that's red. The red indicates a very poor condition of the pavement. The darker red indicates a very poor condition, and those also indicate that the pavement needs to be either rehabbed or totally reconstructed. Most of the pavement involved in this project, from the pictures you see here, are leaning more towards the full reconstruction, and rehab is not really an economical or a viable option. So staff, understanding what the project was and that I just discussed with you, staff issued an RFP. 4 qualified firms responded. Then staff, through a selection committee that was put together, reviewed each one of those submittals, scored them, and through that process, CEC Corporation was selected as the most qualified and responsive firm. The staff then negotiated a contract with CEC Corporation, and that is why we're here tonight. So Shannon Hanks with CEC Corporation is here tonight with me, and we can answer any questions you might have with respect to this.
Councilors.
Mayor, may I make one point of clarification on this item?
Please.
As Travis stated, this project has road, electric, and water involved. Is that correct?
Actually, water only, and,
water, okay.
and I neglected to say we have a companion item on SUA.
Yes.
My apologies.
So the project is funded in part by city funds and SUA funds. So also for your consideration this evening when we get to the SUA agenda on the consent docket is approval of the same agreement, because it does require approval both by the city and SUA because of funding from both of those entities.
Thank you for clarifying that for me.
I'll add too, it's nice when the data that he showed, the data that's collected during our pavement management plan audit adds up or aligns with the comments and requests that we've received from the merchants around the Campus Corner and Strip area that have asked for these roads to be improved.
They don't like the roads around there?
The roads and sidewalks, especially around Campus Corner. So I know they're really excited that this project is in the design.
Yep, absolutely. And it's, I mean, that's a major gateway entry for people coming to town and going down to campus especially. So it'll be really nice to have the streetscaping and the extra stuff as part of this too. And that water line on Knobloch is a problem. So I'm glad that we're finally getting to it. Further questions, staff, or from the council? Do you have a recommended motion for us?
I do. Staff recommends a motion to approve the professional services agreement with CEC for $722,700. That's a fee not to exceed. This includes $664,510 for roadway, $58,190 for water lines, and as the attorney said, this will be presented in SUA. Authorize a budget amendment in the amount of $433,510 for transportation sales tax fund, an amount of $51,188 from water fund, again later in SUA meeting, and authorize the city manager and or general manager to execute the PSA.
Counselors,
I move approval of staff recommendation.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Please vote. It's approved with a vote of 5-0. Thank you, Travis.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask for a 2-minute recess?
Yeah. Do we have to vote on that? Do we have to vote on that? No. You just run out. I'll move that we recess City Council for a few minutes.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please vote. Sorry. With a vote of 5-0 or 4-0, we'll be in recess with one no choice. An update on the Stillwater Animal Welfare Project and approval of a professional services agreement from. Things have gotten out of hand. Candy?
I was trying to be in a hurry. Candy Star, Engineering Director. I'm here tonight to update you all on the Stillwater Animal Welfare Facility and request your authorization for an agreement to proceed with design. This is another project that is being worked on by many departments across the city. Roy Stevens and Rachel Wasserman with PD, Don Dodson with Communications, Bill Millis and other engineering staff, John McClenny and others in finance, and of course city management, Brady, Christine, we all come together for these great things that are game changers for the community, and this is one of those examples. So in about March 2024, we brought you the site selection results for the animal welfare facility, and this green box shows you where the site selection process landed. The items on the left of the slide give you some of the features. It is nearby the terminal. It's right adjacent to waste management, and it's a little south and west of Sanborn Lake. Some of the great features of this are the walking trails at Sanborn Lake, which the dogs are, of course, saying yes, please, to that. And the reroute of Hargis Road will add a 10-foot sidewalk on the east side of the road, so that'll be another benefit in the area for walking trails for the animals, for volunteers. The FAA clearance process is still not completely final, but I'm told by Kelly Reed that we're 99.9% sure. But I still can't tell you that it's a 100%. But she has verbals from FAA reps that say it's going to be okay. And in July, we drafted an RFP for architects, and we received 4. We held interviews, and the city's team ranked Barrett L. Williamson Architects, who's teamed with Animal Arts, as the highest scoring, and we've been able to successfully negotiate an agreement with them. Barrett is here today, and he'll say a few things in a moment. This is a summary of design services fee. Because this project is really, the first phase of this is in support of the GO bond. We're going to do phase 1 only, and that's what you all are authorizing tonight only. And we will, that will end in a 3D rendering and a budget estimate that we can use for the vote. And then if the vote passes, we will proceed with phase 2 to do the rest of that. And you'll see the numbers there for the difference in phase 1 and phase 2. In the same way the schedule is split up in a pause, we'll do schematic design, and that will be complete in January 2025, and we'll pause for the resolution and the vote on April 1st. And if all goes well, we'll ask to proceed with this phase 2. We'll only give that if the bond passes. So Barrett Williamson is here tonight. He's going to say a few things about his firm at Animal Arts, and then we will answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. We've been around for 26 years. We're located in the other university city. Please don't hold that against us. We've worked on several animal shelters, and we have partnered with Animal Arts. They are a firm out of Boulder, Colorado, another university town, and they are experts in animal shelter design. They have designed over 1,500 animal shelters throughout the United States and actually across into the Canadian border, and I think maybe a couple of other international locations. We're super excited. We actually had a project kickoff meeting last Tuesday. We've met with Candy and Dawn and the interim city manager. Congratulations, I think. And but yes, we've been around for 26 years. We've got 9 staff, and we're very, very excited to work with you guys. And I think your council meetings are great, and I commend you all. This is not a bad council meeting to me in any way. So our main goal is to design with you collaboratively a facility that reflects Stillwater values, that's uniquely Stillwater, and Candy has shared some renderings of your airport facility and the fire station number 2 and things like that, so that you get something that is uniquely yours. It's going to create shorter stays. It's going to create less stress for the animals. It's going to be an open, inviting place to promote adoption. And I would like to quote a couple of things here. This is from Karen Devison. Saving one dog will not change the world, but surely for that one dog, the world will change forever. And I've got about another 50 of these in here, from Mark Twain to Charles de Gaulle, Will Rogers. We can save those.
You should have led with Will.
Huh? You want Will? If there are no dogs in heaven, then when I die, I want to go where they went.
There you go.
So we'll save the others for the groundbreaking, and really look forward to working with you all.
Great.
Thank
you so much.
Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Do you have a recommendation for us, Candy?
Staff recommends a motion to approve the professional services agreement with Barrett L. Williamson Architects Incorporated for a fee of $93,958 related to phase 1 work. Authorize the city manager to execute the PSA and approve the associated budget amendment for $103,354, which includes only phase 1 work and contingency.
Counselors?
Emphatically move to accept staff recommendations.
Second.
We have an emphatic motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, it emphatically passes. Item 9, resolutions. Resolution number CC-2024-30, a resolution of the Stillwater City Council adopting the Stillwater Regional Airport Community Participation Plan as required by the Federal Aviation Administration for recipients of federal finance assistance.
Adoption of a community participation plan is required for recipients of federal funds. The purpose of the community participation plan is to meet non-discrimination obligations to ensure that communities affected by Stillwater Regional Airport projects or operations can be informed and participate in the airport planning efforts. Approval of this resolution adopts the plan for Stillwater Regional Airport as required by the FAA. Serge Walzak, Airport Operations Manager, is here if there are questions about the plan.
Anyone have questions about the plan or the resolution? Does anyone have an action?
I move adoption of resolution CC 2024-30.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please vote. Resolution is adopted 5-0. 9B is resolution CC-2024-31, a resolution stating the City of Stillwater's intent to reimburse project expenses as required by Section 1.150-2 of the Treasury Regulations.
This resolution is related to the city's proposed new animal welfare facility. Should the city be successful in financing the project with a general obligation bond issue, the city is entitled to reimbursement of project costs incurred prior to the issuance of bonds. Approval of this resolution expresses the city's intent to reimburse project costs to satisfy the Treasury regulations.
Sounds like a good idea to me. Comments, questions, action?
Motion to adopt resolution number CC-2024-31.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. The resolution is adopted with a vote of 5-0. Resolution CC-2024-32 is a resolution accepting beneficial interest in an amended trust indenture, creating and recreating the Stillwater Utilities Authority, and containing other provisions relating thereto. That was creating and recreating, not creating and recreating, right?
Yeah, and City's Bond Counsel is here to present on these items. Alan Brooks.
Good evening. My name is Alan Brooks. I'm with the Public Finance Law Group in Oklahoma City. I came with a cast of thousands over here, so the questions I can't answer, somebody there will. There's several items we're here on this evening that relate ultimately to the refinancing of some outstanding debt obligations you had. As we've been working on this process, we came to the conclusion in working with city staff, this would also be an opportunity to restructure your existing organizational documents, lease agreement, trust indenture, et cetera. So this item basically relates to putting in place a new organizational document relating to the Stillwater Utilities Authority. The existing document is a 1979 vintage document. It's been amended a couple of times. This will give you the 2024 version of organizational documents. We've been working on this. We've circulated it to staff. We've had dialogue back and forth, and we've come to the point where we have a document we're recommending. So this resolution is the city's action to accept beneficial interest relative to that new organizational document.
Councilors, any questions about the resolution? I will just say that I'm pretty excited about the fact that we're updating some of these documents that have been around for a long time, that have been amended and restated, and pulling all that together and making it, comprehensive with current laws is
Yes, sir.
It's a good thing. Is there any action on the resolution?
Motion to adopt resolution CC-2024-33.
Second.
We're on
32. 32. Sorry.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution CC-2024-32. Please vote. That resolution is adopted with a vote of 5-0. Okay. Councilor Clark is excusing himself. Item 9D, resolution number CC-2024-33. This is a resolution of the City of Stillwater, Oklahoma, the city approving the incurrence of indebtedness by the Stillwater Utilities Authority, the authority, issuing its utility system and sales tax revenue bonds, the bonds, in one or more series for the purpose of refunding certain obligations of the authority, providing that the organizational document creating the authority is subject to the provisions of the bond indenture, waiving competitive bidding and authorizing the sale of said bonds by the authority at negotiated sale prices, at a negotiated sale and at a price less than par, ratifying and confirming a lease agreement as amended pertaining to the leasing of the city's water, sanitary sewer, solid waste, and electric systems to the authority, and authorizing an amended lease agreement and operation and maintenance contract, approving said authorizing execution of a sales tax agreement by and between the city and authority pertaining to a year-to-year pledge of certain sales tax revenue, approving the forms of a continuing disclosure agreement and an official statement, and containing other provisions relating thereto.
Chris Gander with BOK Securities, and my partner Zach Robinson as well. As you know, we've met with some of you, talked about this, but this is an opportunity to refinance the 2014 A bond. So I was going to walk you through the numbers fairly quickly, and then Alan can get back up here and kind of explain the resolution in a nutshell. So with that, we just have two sections here, the existing bonds that are outstanding, and then what the new bonds will look like, assuming you all pass this. So the original bond issue that we're talking about was the $61,830,000 utility system sales tax revenue bonds, Series 2014A. You closed that bond issue in August 12th, 2014. It was to build the power plant, which has been completed now. Your average rate still outstanding is 4.67% fixed. Your final maturity is October 142. It's prepayable or became prepayable, which means you can pay it off, no penalty, on October 1st of this year. Your principal outstanding is $49,880,000, and your average annual debt service is $4,135,000. So that's what you've got right now. So we've got an opportunity to refinance that with some savings. So the new bonds would be par amount of $45,145,000. We're targeting closing December 19th. That may move around a little bit depending on when the audit comes in. One thing I would say is your staff should be very commended on getting your audits done so fast. We work all around the state, and very, very few communities can get their audits done before the end of December. And you often get your audits done, Christy, mid-December and up, which it just makes it our timing on when we want to sell bonds and have an audit come out. So we're going to think through that. But right now, our plan is to close around December 19th. Our estimated rate as of Friday was 3.7%, which would be fixed like your current, which is approximately 1% lower. So you're about approximately 4.7 now. You're going to be going to approximately 3.7. The rate's not locked in until the bonds are sold. So we're hiring an underwriter. They will market the bonds. Our trading desk, along with Zach and I, will be reviewing the pricing, making sure we're thinking you're getting the best rates available in the market on that day. And if there's something that comes up in the market, we'd also advise, let's hold off. That's our job to help advise you with that. But at the moment, 3.7%. Same maturity date, 42 unchanged. Anticipated to be prepayable. The standard with bond issues is normally 10 years, just like the one you have now. You sold in 2014. It's prepayable in 2024. We're hoping to have a shorter call, like a 7-year call. So that's the intention right now. But once again, probably on the long end, it would be a 10-year. But our goal is to do it as a 7-year. Your average annual debt service would drop down to $382,000. So kind of can go back up to the top. Currently, it's $3,820,000. It's currently $4,135,000. So it would be dropping by about $315,000 a year. So that's cash savings. So you multiply that by the number of years, you come up with approximately $5,659,000 gross. We always talk about present values, and we've been hovering around $3.5 million. So right now, we're looking at $3,412,000, which that squiggly line and that 6.84% is approximately 6.84% of your current bonds outstanding. So as a rule of thumb, once you get to that current call date, 3% is where you want to really start considering doing a refinancing, and you're above double that right now. So we're obviously recommending that you do a refinancing at this time. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilors, any questions?
I do have a question. So we have 49, almost 50 million outstanding, but we're refinancing 45 million. Why?
Great question. So, and I was trying to figure out the best way to put it on here, but the bonds will be selling at a higher coupon rate, 5%, but there'll be a high premium that the purchasers will pay. So you're going to end up getting $50 million of proceeds, 5 of that being premium on $45 million worth of bonds. So it'll be, for example, you'll have some, and you have this on the 14 too, you'll have some 5% coupons selling at 4%. So somebody's going to be paying, depends on what year it would be, but they might be paying $1,100 for a $1,000 bond, right? And so when it matures, you only pay that $1,000 back. So you're not getting it for free. It's built into the interest rate. But it's kind of like on a mortgage, if you pay for points, effectively the bond buyers are paying for a higher rate, but you're getting the benefit of that premium. So it does look like there's a big discrepancy, but inside our detailed numbers, there's a premium amount you're going to get. So you're really netting about $50 million. Good eyes on catching that.
And I would just thank Christy and her team and you all for the help. I think refinancing bonds when we possibly can and getting that kind of cost savings, that just shows that good stewardship of the public funds that we're entrusted with.
We agree. Thank you. And then so unless you have questions on the numbers, I'll have Alan come up and explain the details of the resolution.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, the resolution you have in your packet is the beneficiary of the public trust under Oklahoma law. Both the city council is the beneficiary and the trust authority itself have to approve the transaction. So this is the approval of the transaction at the city level and the authorization of the documents that the city is a party to. So I'm happy to answer any questions relative to the resolution, but we'll have a companion item in the authority agenda.
All right. Thanks, sir. Councilors, action on the resolution?
Motion to adopt resolution number CC-2024-33.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, resolution 2024-33 is adopted. Item 10 is ordinances. I guess I should note for the minutes that Councilor Clark didn't vote on that item.
Or to participate in any way.
Or participate in any way. Ordinances, item 10 on first read, ordinance 3546, an ordinance approving and adopting the Stillwater Data Center Economic Development Project Plan and supporting incentive districts pursuant to Oklahoma Local Development Act, identifying and establishing 6 incentive districts, designating and adopting project area and incentive district boundaries, deferring the numerical designations and effective dates for the incentive districts, adopting certain findings, authorizing the City of Stillwater and the Stillwater Economic Development Authority to carry out and administer the project plan, ratifying and confirming the actions, recommendations, and findings of the Review Committee and the Stillwater Planning Commission, approving and adopting a tax incentive agreement, providing for severability, and declaring an emergency. As we stated before, this is the first reading of this ordinance. It is not an adoption of the ordinance. It's just the first reading. Councilors.
Move to adopt ordinance 3546 to second reading.
Let's try that one again.
Don't move to advance. Did I use the wrong word? Move to advance to second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to advance ordinance 3546 to second reading. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that ordinance is moved to second reading, although we do need action on the emergency clause as well.
Yes, please take a separate vote on declaring the emergency.
I move to declare an emergency.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the emergency clause. Please vote. Emergency clause is adopted for ordinance 3546 with a vote of 5-0. Also on first reading, we have ordinance 3547, an ordinance authorizing the restatement of the lease agreement and operation and maintenance contract dated April 1st, 1979, as heretofore amended, including the extensions of the lease term, providing for citizen-initiated referendum of said lease agreement in accordance with Section 4-2 of the City Charter. This is also in relation to the restatement of our Utilities Authority organizational documents.
Yes. If you have any questions, we'll answer them, or bond counsel can as well.
Councilors, questions, comments, or action on the ordinance?
Motion to advance ordinance number 3547 to second read.
Second.
A motion and a second to advance the ordinance. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, ordinance 3547 is advanced to second reading. On second reading, we have ordinance 3545, an ordinance amending the Stillwater City Code by amending Chapter 20, Fire Prevention and Protection, Article 2, Fire Department, by amending Section 20-30, Fire Services Fees, by designating how funds are collected and how to be used, and by increasing the Rural Fire Services contract annual fee, repealing all ordinances to the contrary, and providing for severability. Councilors.
Move to adopt ordinance 3545.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Please vote. The vote of 5-0, ordinance 3545 is adopted. Reports from the officers and the board. Ms. Carnley.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Moore.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is a busy and exciting time in Stillwater. One of the projects we discussed earlier this evening is the data center projects and the upcoming election regarding the electric provider for the data centers. However, we have many more projects and economic development initiatives underway, including the new terminal at Stillwater Regional Airport, which we had the groundbreaking of last week, Rails to Trails, which I will announce. This is a little bit of a surprise. It was going to come in an email, but I'll do it here. Today, the ODOT board voted on our second phase of the Rails to Trails program, and they approved the next $1.2 million for
Excellent.
the
Hooray.
second mile.
That's
so
fantastic.
that happened today, and it's really exciting for our city. So we have a lot of other projects and updates on our website, so you can visit stillwaterok.gov/projects and follow us on social media. Please use the City of Stillwater on Facebook, Instagram, X, which is Twitter, and YouTube. If you have any questions about projects on our website, please email our communications director, Dawn Dodson, at don.dodson@stillwaterok.gov.
Dawn.Dodson. She's good. Yep, nice work. Vice Mayor.
Yes. Did you know that we now have enhanced event programming at the Senior Center? The October calendar of activities is available online at stillwater.gov/senior center. There you will see activities from line dancing, cards, watercolor, Zumba class, guitar lessons, to a Halloween party and more. If you have questions, contact Senior Center Coordinator Teresa Goodner by email at teresa.goodner@stillwaterok.gov and by phone at 405-747-8080. We challenge you to go to the Senior Center this month and bring a friend.
All right. Councilor Hawkins.
We are developing the Envision Stillwater 2045 comprehensive plan, and we need community input. Your opinions and life experience matter. They will be utilized as a blueprint to determine housing, economic development, workforce, and much more. Please complete the survey online at envisionstillwater2045.com or visit the public library for a printed copy. The last day to complete this survey is Sunday, October 20th. After the 20th, the feedback received will be compiled and used for Envision Stillwater 2045.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilor Clark.
Surveys are currently being conducted for our neighborhood parks. If you utilize these specific spaces or live in neighborhoods near these parks, please participate in the short surveys. Also, we know it is early, but we ask that you save the date now and plan to attend the community meeting on January 9, 2025 to provide input as we develop a vision plan for parks, community spaces, and public facilities. These are your parks and facilities and spaces, and we want to make sure they meet the needs of our residents and families. Your voice matters. Please plan to attend and join us on January 9. For more information, go to stillwaterok.gov/parks.
January 9th, Parks meeting.
Be there.
Councilor Harden.
October 19th, Saturday, the city's Watershed Quality Department will have its biennial Household Hazardous Waste Collection event. That's a tongue twister. The event will be from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Convenience Collection Center, another tongue twister, located at 807 South Perkins. During this event, residents are encouraged to drop off any household pollutants for free. Accepted items include oil-based paints, pesticides, herbicides, household cleaning products, pool chemicals, unused pharmaceuticals, and more. The Convenience Collection Center will still accept regular trash and recycling that day. However, trailers and commercial waste are not allowed. Yard waste will be accepted after 1 p.m. The event is free for residents, and a utility bill may be requested as proof. For a full list of acceptable items, go to stillwaterok.gov or call 405-533-8458.
Always a popular event. I will let you know about a new initiative we have to address sidewalk concerns throughout the community. Our community continues to become multimodal, embracing walking, running, cycling, and more. We want to make sure that we have safe and connected pathways. Residents are encouraged to share suggestions for sidewalk improvements through the City of Stillwater's Sidewalk Connect. Those who report connection and repair projects will receive an automated response letting them know their submission has been received. All projects submitted will be sent to our engineering and community development departments for review and incorporated into future planning efforts based on overall impact to the public, available budget, ongoing projects, and more. So you can report a sidewalk concern or request a connection. Go to stillwaterok.gov/sidewalkconnect. I actually tested this out the other day. Went on and told the folks at the city that we really need a sidewalk on Sanger Road between 19th and at least the Tech Park. It's actually a cool little service. You can go in and you can drop a pin in the map where you think, especially like where there's not a sidewalk that there needs to be one, or where there's a sidewalk that's in really bad shape. Really helpful if you go in and report those issues, and so we know where those sidewalk connections are needed. So stillwaterok.gov/sidewalkconnect. I will also just reiterate that we have on November 4th as the date of the second public hearing and presentation of the Stillwater Data Center Economic Development Project Plan, at which time any interested person shall have the opportunity to be heard in support of or in opposition to the proposed project plan prior to any action with regard to adoption of the project plan. November 4th, another public hearing. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn City Council. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the Stillwater City Council is now adjourned. This time I will call to order the Stillwater Utilities Authority meeting for October 7th, 2024. Trustees, questions, comments, or action on the consent docket?
I move approval of consent.
Second.
A motion and a second on consent. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the consent docket is approved. Down to resolutions. 5A, Resolution SUA 2024-7, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an amended trust indenture, creating and recreating the Stillwater Utilities Authority and containing other provisions relating thereto. As discussed in the City Council meeting, questions, comments, or action on this resolution?
Motion to adopt resolution number SUA-2024-7.
Second.
A motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that resolution is adopted. While Trustee Clark excuses himself, I'm just going to reiterate, I have to really read the whole title of these resolutions, right? You make me do that.
Yes,
for
the
legal
charter says
reasons.
introduce
Okay.
by title.
All right. This is a long one, I'm just saying. Resolution number SUA 2024, wow. Resolution SUA 2024-8, a resolution of the Stillwater Utilities Authority, the authority authorizing the issuance of its utility system and sales tax revenue bonds, the bonds, in one or more series in the aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $51,325,000, and authorizing a certificate of determination, approving the solicitation for and use of bond insurance and or a reserve surety or insurance policy, designating underwriters with respect to the sale of the bonds, authorizing the sale of the bonds at negotiated sale and waiving competitive bidding, approving the form of bond purchase agreement, approving a general bond indenture and series supplemental bond indenture authorizing the issuance and securing of the payment of the bonds, providing that the organizational document creating the authority is subject to the provision of the bond indenture, ratifying and confirming a lease agreement as amended pertaining to the leasing of the city's water, sanitary sewer, solid waste, and electric systems to the authority, and authorizing an amended lease agreement and operation and maintenance contract, approving and authorizing execution of a sales tax agreement by and between the city and authority pertaining to a year-to-year pledge of certain sales tax revenue, approving the form of an official statement pertaining to the bonds, authorizing the chairman or vice chairman to approve any correction to said official statement, and authorizing distribution of the same, approving the form of a continuing disclosure agreement and an official statement, ratifying and confirming a power purchase and sale agreement and a capacity purchase agreement with the Grand River Dam Authority, authorizing and directing the modification of collateral pertaining to certain obligations of the authority to the Oklahoma Water Resources Board, authorizing and directing the execution of bonds and other documents relating to the transaction, including bond insurance and/or surety documents, and professional services agreements with bond counsel, financial advisor, and disclosure counsel, and containing other provisions relating thereto.
We like authorizing and directing better than the way we had it read, so
I'm going to assume that should have been an and.
That, you are correct, Mayor. I will make one other note. We talked through this with Ms. Carnley earlier this morning. We would propose adding about 6 words in section 1 under indebtedness authorized. We're going to add in a provision that says funding a reserve requirement with respect to the bonds. That was contemplated. We thought it'd be clearer if that sentence was in there. So as you vote on this resolution, you would do so with that amendment we would propose.
Yes, it's been changed to the resolution for signature. It's the one minor amendment since what was posted in the agenda packet. On advice of bond counsel, with that amendment, we are seeking approval of resolution SUA 2024-8.
I think we've covered just about everything else, but we would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Action on the resolution?
Do we need to adopt it with those changes mentioned?
Yes, if your motion could just be as amended. Okay. At the end of the motion.
Motion to adopt resolution number SUA-2024-8 as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Please vote. With a vote of 4-0, with Councilor Clark not participating, that resolution is adopted. Excuse me, with Trustee Clark not participating. Any reports from the officers of the board? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
With a motion and a second to adjourn SUA, please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the Stillwater Utilities Authority is now adjourned, and that concludes our meetings for the evening.